Nobody wants to come to Minnesota. I mean, Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley. You know the. Good morning, Alec. How are you?
I'm good, Paul. How are you?
Pretty well. Alec Lewis, athletic.com. Dallas equipment guys chewing their nails at the ends of games. At the end of this game, operations has the buses at the airport on hold as to whether they have to come to the Twin Cities. Players know Boston is in the finals, and Boston is just chilling, talking about the Mavericks. Advanced scouts miles down the road on how they're going to defend Kyrie, their former teammate. Returning here delays all of that and just pesters the Dallas Mavericks. And all Charles Barkley goes with now on TNT is how much he doesn't want to come here. It's like Draymond rolls into this thing and messes up the authenticity of one of the great sports shows that anybody's ever going to see. And now all Barkley and Shaq go with is like, yeah, it's going to be snowing there. Don't want, it's like, oh, great, I got to pack 2 suits and go to the Twin Cities again. It's like, it's such a tired, overplayed bit. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. It's funny because prior to me moving here, I probably would have thought there would have been snow on the ground too. Like Charles Barkley grew up in Leeds, Alabama, which is like 15 minutes from my suburb. So I'm very familiar with that area, and I'm very familiar with thinking that there's snow on the ground in Minnesota at every time of the day. But I mean, you mentioned you went off on the Draymond thing last week when I was here, and I was kind of like laughing about it. But I am just so with you where it just sucks for me. Like, I love that show. I love Ernie Johnson more than any. Me
too.
And I almost enjoy that show more than I enjoy the game, and I love the game. But to have Draymond in there just like throwing darts at people the whole time, it's like, what are we doing? You would think there would be a little more awareness, and he's probably got a really good media agent to be able to get him in there.
Unbelievable.
It doesn't feel like it's deserved. But
how do you slide somebody? I mean, how do you look at there has to be an agenda, like deals up. You might this show might go elsewhere, but it's like when you have Ernie Johnson, Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, and Shaquille O'Neal. How do you look at that and think it needs anything? There's an agenda here.
Well, they know. Like, I guarantee you, those 4 guys know. But you're right. Like, maybe it's executives. Maybe there probably is some back channeling thing. But they'll find out when they get here tomorrow or today, whatever. It's beautiful here.
I know.
Like someone asked me. This weekend I was out of town. They're like, so are you enjoying Minnesota? I say the first winter, I mean, I was like, is the snow ever going to leave the ground? But the last year, I mean, especially, I mean, this winter was incredible, but it's all, I mean, how could you not have a good time when you're seeing Nordo at Free House and all over I mean, it's great times.
What'd you think of the Wolves game last night?
I was good to see Cat do what he did. I mean, I really sometimes just think it's just this is not I'm not an elite basketball mind to say this, but it's literally Kyrie and Luka against Ant and Cat, and who's playing better. And if Ant and Cat are making shots and Cat is playing the way he did, like I texted a friend during the game. I wonder what the Wolves record is when Cat shoots 45% or higher in a game, and I would bet that it's like 80% win percentage, because when he's hitting it again, this is not elite basketball mind stuff. But I every time I come on with you and we talk Wolves, I talk about Mike Conley, and I love that guy.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I have it here in the Tolstoy, but I hadn't gotten to it, and it was generated, I think, off a tweet of yours last night, where you put like the box, like if you look at the 14, the 7 assists or whatever. But the 4 steals, and there were a couple that were super crafty. Ant goes for 29. Carl resurrects his offensive game. Kyrie stunk for most of the game and out of nowhere. But Conley, like Kyle Anderson, was such a stabilizing force. That was a great tweet last night.
No, in the first half, and it's like, and he's been doing this for so long. Like when I was maybe in 4th grade, I remember driving up from Birmingham to Memphis and seeing them play the Warriors in the playoffs. And he had like a broken face. He's wearing a black mask on his face.
That.
And he's just like, it's these floaters where it's, I read this one time. It's like some guys who use the backboard so well. It's like a pool shot where you put the perfect amount of spin.
Yeah.
And
English.
Conley, there you go. And Conley's like he's just so good at those little right hand, left hand. I don't know if he's left-handed. I don't know if he's right-handed sometimes. It's unbelievable. And just the command, like that's been one of my favorite parts of watching this entire Wolves run is to see this dude at this age, after all the years watching him play, still have like a level of control. Like he's controlling the game. The game's not controlling him. And I've just enjoyed watching him so much.
Beautifully stated. And it's a fascinating series. Now, even if you get swept, there were some fascinating, even if they had gotten swept, at least for my taste, there are some fascinating things in these games that are just antithetical to how you think the outcome would go if I just told you, oh, the Wolves made 12 more three-pointers in this game than Dallas. Oh, they lost. Oh, the Mavericks in game 2 were begging to get blown out all first half like they did against OKC when they lost by 22. They're down by 30 against the Clippers. They cut it to 12 for show, but they got blown out. And okay, so the Wolves won that one, right? No, they didn't acquiesce. And, then there was a travel on Luka Doncic. It was easy to call at the end of the game. And he won the game. Well, who was checking him? Alexander Walker or Edwards? No, it was Gobert. And Rudy actually did a good job on him, but Luka hit him more. So that's fascinating. And then the waves of the way things turn in this series. It's all Wolves. Now it's all Mavs. You feel like you're getting your head beaten in by a metaphorical 2x4, and it's 49-49 at half. End of the third quarter, here come the Mavs again. And then Edwards, they isolate him. He hits that little right side jump shot right at the end of the third quarter, and that was massive. I mean, the details, the overarcher is Luka and Kyrie have been the identity of the series. Their 1-2 has been better than our 1-2. But the details throughout the entire thing, like all those lobs. I mean, the lobs are gotcha plays, man. They're like, we got you. We know you can't defend this. We're going to clown on you. And those came back a little bit last night. So it's just a fascinating series.
Well, you're 100% right. The one guy on Dallas that I don't know if, I mean, you guys have talked about it, and Max and part, like they've all talked about it, but Daniel Gafford has been so good.
He's sneaky.
And I when I was at Mizzou, he played at Arkansas.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, I was watching this SEC game. He's playing Vanderbilt. He swats a ball on one end. Then on the other end, he does like a 360 windmill, and he's 6'10". And I'm like, what is even going on with this guy? Then he gets drafted, is in Washington. No one really cares about him.
Right.
And now, it's the physicality with which he plays, and he's like a pogo stick sometimes at the rim with some of those lobs.
Shot blocker.
It's interesting. But then the other part is just the shot making. And it's, again, like I texted Johnny Athletic before game 3, I think, and I was like, I'm really just impressed. He's like, wow, really high level stuff there. and I deserved it. But it's like just the step backs, the Kyrie left-handed floater shot. I mean, Ant last night was some of like the fading to his right. What about the pivot forward, the pivot back, the pivot through, the bank off the glass? It's like, it's very fun. And I kind of, to end it, like I kind of, just as like a living here, I don't want this to end because it's been so fun to see the way like the people have rallied around the team.
I love it. Will you attend tomorrow night?
We'll see. I haven't checked in on that. I am very focused, dialed in, raring to get out to TCO Performance Center to do my very best for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Watching 7-on-7 football.
Yep. Your best is required. And you will provide it for the athletic devotees
in the high red and low red.
Well, just like the mailbag that I read this morning, and we'll get into that a little later because shockingly there are some Justin Jefferson questions.
Wow.
But I like and when's the last time you did the mailbag?
I do it I try not to.
So the one I read, I now have read twice, I think. Was that from last week?
Yeah, that was last. Yeah, I'm not doing it. No, I'm not doing it. I try to do it.
How did I miss the McCarthy, the submission you had about where you put Ridnour's name in? I don't know how I missed that last week about the depths to which they're going with J.J. McCarthy's mechanics. We'll get into that momentarily. Last question here. Timberwolves. Any shot they make history and win 4 in a row? And he shot here? He shot up in this thing?
Like, part of me, I was...
Of course there's a shot.
I was thinking last night, I'm like, you win game, you make it 3-2.
Yeah.
Now the pressure's on them. You're going...
Yeah.
Like, I mean, look, part of me was wondering, can Luka and Kyrie sustain the shot making over and over? I mean, they were shooting like 50%. Now, I don't think they're going to be as bad as they were last night shooting the ball, but I still think, like, if Jaden Hardy doesn't go on some out-of-body tear, the Wolves probably win by 15. Like, there are these elements to where it's like, I mean, they're good enough to win 3 games in a row. They just are. So I am. You're looking at Nordo. I'm the young kid. But, like,
say it. They can smell it.
I think it's possible. I actually do.
Yeah, and I do too. And I know Nordo does. But I don't know if you said it yesterday, but I haven't said it today, and I didn't say it or put it on Twitter or anything into yesterday. Because it's just so preposterous to think they possibly can, but it's those details where it's like the Timberwolves, and I don't have the percentage in front of me from last night, but the previous 3 games, they shot over 50%. So they're shooting 50% in these games and losing.
The Wolves shot 52 or 53 last night. Yeah.
They're making 12 more 3-pointers in a game and losing.
And they missed 8 free throws. Like, say you make 5 more of those. Say Jaden Hardy doesn't become Michael Jordan for a stretch. Then you win by 15, and it's like, I just, the narrative.
What about it?
What I'll tell you.
What about it?
I was telling a friend this last night, too. The narratives of NBA playoffs game to game is so similar to me to NFL games week to week. Like, you're either the best, Cat's the best, or he's the worst. Anthony Edwards has no ability to read a defense, and he's dicing and dissect. Like, it's like, guys, there's probably a middle ground here. But yeah, I think it's possible. Come on,
yeah,
you're not bringing me in here to be like, no, I'm rooting for people here to be happy.
But the only reason that and we have felt this in lockstep, not even sharing it, right? Because it's hard to talk about.
Yeah,
but
it
it's
feels
like,
weird to say it,
right? And it's.
Every game has been one moment in which it goes the wrong way.
Yeah, 1 or 2, like less than a handful, where there are things you can lay on where, like, if you keep doing this, and this, and they come back a little bit with the shot making, who knows?
Even last night,
hey!
and I'm glad he mentioned it. Even last night, and Finch said it at the top too, we didn't play our best. Foul trouble, making good decisions.
9 turnovers in the first half.
The turnovers, and then the missed free throws. These are all things in which the barrel is pointed squarely at your own foot, and you just pull that trigger. You are shooting yourself in the foot with all of those things, but the margins of victory have been 1, 3, 5, and 7.
Thank you.
That's how razor thin this thing is. Why not us?
Dalton Risner reportedly is returning to the Minnesota Vikings, and given Alec covers the Vikings, assumedly for profit, we'll get into that and some other things around the corner. You're listening to KFAN.
Man. 9 to noon.
Big boy's back! What in the ham fat is going on with you guys?
Ooh! Risner reportedly is back in the mix. What do you make of that?
Yeah, not surprised. I mean, really, it was an interesting kind of, I guess, road to get here. Last offseason, no team signed him. He'd been injured. And then ultimately the Vikings, I mean, they decided that they'd take a flyer on him, and it worked out, and they ended up trading Ezra Cleveland, and he played. And then this offseason, I think Dalton, after spending a lot of time last year before playing, came in with a pretty solid number and figure that he wanted to be paid. And I don't think the Vikings at that time I don't think they were willing to meet him at that number. Dalton obviously switched agents. I think I've said this on the air. He switched to Drew Rosenhaus. Excuse me, kind of throughout the middle of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And then the number probably came down considerably, and so they brought him in. I mean, in terms of an energy, he brings that. In terms of pass protection, he's reliable. He's not the most fleet of foot in the run game. I don't believe that their talk about Blake Brandel has been overstated. I really do think they like Blake Brandel. They paid him for a reason. but depth at that spot is just massive. Like I was thinking about this yesterday. I mean, last offseason we talked so much about how they wanted to improve the run game, and then the run game barely improved. And then this offseason they've talked none of it. They really haven't at all. And the offensive line was essentially the same, if not maybe a little worse without Risner. So, I mean, the fact they brought him in, I think it's going to be at least depth. I wouldn't be shocked, obviously, if he's the starter. He has way, way, way more experience than Blake Brandel. But I still don't feel like rosy about that unit, to be honest.
Brandel could move to right guard.
I mean, yeah, it's obviously, I mean, they've given Ed Ingram time to develop, and I mean, talking to people throughout last year, they felt like he did take a step forward. But, I mean, especially with Sam Darnold, it's going to need to be clean, especially if it's a rookie. You need to make sure he's clean, so they can't really mess around. We really haven't talked a ton about the offensive line here.
Right.
And it's not the sexiest radio talker, but again, obviously Christian Darrisaw is what he is. Brian O'Neill, I think even a year more removed from that Achilles injury, he'll probably be more reliable. But the interior is still sketchy to me, and it's something that I think I've thought about a lot recently, and I will continue to, just because I don't have, maybe it's different for me and the fans, but I don't have this overpowering confidence about that group.
When you head to Egan about 15 minutes from now for Vikings organized team activity, like what are you looking for? Either to generate a mailbag or some type of story. I don't know if there are pressers or whatever, and you can pull from that, obviously. But organized team activities, what do you look for?
Yeah, definitely looking for to see how Blake Cashman ranges. No, I mean when JJ McCarthy's, I'm really focused on JJ primarily. Then probably I'd say Sam Darnold. So it starts with the quarterbacks, and then everything else. I want to see how much coverage they're really playing defensively. So I'll watch how guys are moving around. I want to see the defensive units. And then some of the guys I'm just interested in, the Gabriel Murphys, the Dwight McLaughlins, the Kyrie Jacksons, the punting, kicking stuff, the punter. I wrote this, but
last week, right?
We were out there. Seth Vernon, this undrafted guy, blew Ryan right out of the water in terms of the performance.
Wow.
I can't hide that at all.
Are they punting against each other?
No.
One goes, the other goes?
Yeah.
It's a punt off?
No, it's a few reps for one.
Can Vernon throw?
I'm sure he can throw fine enough. If he can punt better, I think that's the primary job of the punter.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Vernon, it had a couple that were 55 yards, and then Ryan Wright hit one, it kind of bounced out of bounds. I'm like, okay, this is now again
inside the 20.
It was one, yeah. That was one day out there, but that type of stuff. You're out there for an hour and a half.
Yeah,
it's hard to watch.
I get it.
It's hard to watch everything. I'm not actually really focused on the punter, mostly JJ McCarthy, but some the punter. Yeah.
Now with Justin Jefferson, forever being a polarizing topic, positively or speculatively with the Minnesota Vikings. Let's update that, or just get some thought from Alec Lewis around the corner. 9 to noon continues with some more football conversation. Then about 15 minutes from now, we're going to play back Nordo's Staying Alive montage and the Chris Finch interview we conducted to begin the show.
FaceTiming my dad.
Say it again.
Why are you FaceTiming my dad?
How'd you hit him yesterday with the banker?
I didn't hit him that well, but I told Tim. He was this close from even par, and I told him I would. I told him I would tell the radio, but
really? Siegley can golf.
He's got this.
Did you hit him up for any cash?
Why would you say that? No.
Just wondering.
No, honestly, Delwood. It was a beautiful course, beautiful out there.
Of course it was.
It was awesome. I played a lot more golf this summer than I have in a while. Covering baseball, they play every day. You guys know that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's been fun to get out there. To have me out there was awesome of him.
Dear friend and owner of First Resource Bank, Tim Siegley, thanks for taking YA under your metaphorical wing and providing him with a local friend. Not saying your only friend, but a local friend, right?
I got to tell you, like, we talked I rode with him in the golf cart, and like there were times where he's asking, so hey, I think he thinks.
So he plays into the bit.
Yeah, well, no, but I think he actually thinks the bit is legit.
But
like,
you don't have many local friends.
How about that? The bit is legit.
Right.
You like that.
Too legit to bit.
Yeah, exactly. No,
you don't have many local friends, Alec.
Not like I didn't go to college at St. John, St. Benedict's.
Right.
I didn't go to Concordia.
I didn't go to college, period, and I have 6 friends.
Yeah, but you're Paul Allen.
But I only have 6 friends. I'm trying to get you up to 3, with the banker.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
He loved hanging out with you, man.
It was fun.
So, and I'm sure I've asked you this before, but just, in our final couple of minutes here, what do you think about Jefferson not having a new contract at this stage of the equation? You wrote about it at the mailbag last week. I didn't bring it up last week. It's not like, Florio with PFT, okay? So it's 10 of 10 with him as the fact that it's not done. Had him on earlier, Seifert and some others and whomever shot down that Charlie Walters. How about that? And I love Charlie. The amiable and affable Charlie Walters. We've known each other for a long time. Very kind man. But, if you're, I agree with Florio, where if you got a nugget, where it's like, hey, Vikings were considering this with Malik Neighbors and multiple first-round picks, and they would, by the way, trade Justin Jefferson. How is that an aside or a bullet point within, some type of column? So that actually, I think, matters here, when it comes to veracity or lack thereof. But I just, like I said to Mike, I'm like, well, why would they give up multiple first-round picks for a receiver, not knowing if they could trade Jefferson when they don't want to trade Jefferson, and then pass on a quarterback or a defensive player? It just didn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't know Charlie at all. I think we've met. Maybe he seemed like a really nice guy, and I don't know Florio at all. We never talked, but I don't know. It feels like there used to be more of a premium on you can't, if it's in the newspaper the next day, it has to be fact, and if it's not, then you run a correction. And you say that doesn't exist in this day and age. So maybe it's just I'm being a narc because I went to Mizzou and it's journalism all the time. But it's like, you can't be 50% right in this game. You can't be 80% right. It's 100% right. Like, if I get something wrong, I'm going to bed at night feeling like I got hit by a 2x4 in the head, because it's my whole credibility. It's my whole job. So with Justin Jefferson specifically, there has been, I've said it 1,000 times. I've written it 1,000 times. They really want to extend him. They want to pay him. They want him to be the highest paid wide receiver and maybe even the highest paid non-quarterback. That hasn't changed. Now, Justin has his own leverage. He does. His representatives have their own leverage. They can hold out. They can wait for the market to keep going up. They can do whatever they want to do in the negotiation. And I've said this to you before. If it was Justin's primary thing, I think he'd want to be out on the football field today. He loves ball. But this is a negotiation, and there are certain leverage things you have to play. And I'd say the first point at which it's like, okay, this is a little bit different, a little bit unexpected, would be if he's not there next week at mandatory minicamp.
Right.
Even then, I'm not going to be, the sky is falling, they have to trade him. Just because that's happened in the past with guys does not mean it's going to happen with every single guy. He's got a great relationship with the team. The agents have great relationships. They've agreed within their negotiation not to leak stuff, which is why most of what is leaked is just totally not accurate. So nothing's changing me. I was asked in the mailbag, do you think this is going to happen? I said yes. It's a high dollar number with a lot of big time players involved. It's not going to be the smoothest sailing. It never is. And I think both sides are in a solid place. And
just to verify, and I could be wrong here, as far as everything that is gone, and you're right, mandatory camp, we'll find out one way or the other if he shows up, if he doesn't. This is actually, I think he's taken the same schedule that he took a year ago. 100%. Where he didn't go to the voluntary things. He showed up for mandatory minicamp and then went away post-camp and showed up at training camp. So the only difference here is that we're absolutely now on the contract sweat. So all of this is really just us sitting around in lieu of new information. Same schedule. He's doing the same damn thing he's done. More and more players in the NFL are doing the voluntary version of workouts with their personal trainers, with their buddies in South Beach, those sorts of things. We've actually seen nothing deviate thus far.
The only difference this time around compared to last year is that Justin's the only conversation to have other than J.J. McCarthy now he's playing. Last year it was, what's going to happen with the Kirk contract? What about Daniil Hunter? So then Justin was kind of like tier 2, tier 3 within that conversation. Obviously it ascended. But yeah, I mean, he missed these same voluntary workouts last year. And would it be nice to have him here working with J.J. McCarthy already? Like, yeah, obviously. And again, I guarantee he's mindful of that. I guarantee with him being a captain and caring about that, like it matters to him to not be here. But again, your representatives in this case, his representatives, they work at WME. They have a ton of clients. Nick Bosa is one of them. Last year, he became the highest paid non-quarterback in the entire NFL. These guys know what they're doing. They know how to maximize a guy's value. And that value to me is going to be $35 million a year at the bare minimum, probably.
So with OTAs today, then I don't believe they practice Thursday. They're back Friday, then mandatory minicamp next week. Then they're off nearly 2. This is a long off period through the 4th of July up to training camp. And I think there's an excellent battle unfurling for the 4th pass rusher piece. And it may be like 4 pass rushers, okay? Well, that guy plays for Flores. So you got like Gabriel Murphy, Andre Carter maybe, and this undrafted Marshall guy named Owen Porter. And I meant to bring him up last week. He flashed to me a little bit when I was out there. Wears 57, caught the eye. Do you know anything about Owen Porter? I'm not saying he's this year's Ivan Pace, but my man seems to get it. Like I'm watching 57 going, damn, who's that?
Yeah, I don't know a ton about him. Haven't talked to him, but I will say when the draft ended, I reached out to one of the staffers, and I was like, who should I be watching undrafted? And his name came up, and he's a linebacker guy from Marshall, was a leader with them. At the bare minimum, could be a special teams contributor, and with how the new kickoff, and how those rules might work. I mean, the value of a special teams role, I mean, I think it goes up. And so definitely a relevant name within that conversation. I mean, that room is very interesting in terms of like, I mean, you have Andrew Van Ginkel, you have Grenard, you have Dallas Turner, Patrick Jones in the mix somewhere. I don't really know where he's at with his development. I think maybe you'd like to see more from him. But definitely a name to watch there, no question.
Safe travels to Egan, okay?
Thank you, guys.
Alec Lewis, read his stuff at The Athletic and theathletic.com. When we return, we replay our long interview with Timberwolves head coach Chris Finch off last night's elimination staving victory down Big D way. You're listening to The Fan.